Hi guys, and welcome to another video. Now this video is all about setting up and using Bitwarden. In this video we're going to set up a Bitwarden server not only on an Unraid server but also in the cloud on a VPS server too. Sounds interesting? Then let's get started. Hi guys, so today's video it's sponsored by FastHosts. Now FastHosts have let me write a question for their techie test. So if you're based in the UK and you know the answer, then you have the chance to win 2 tickets to South by Southwest, which also includes flights and accommodation. So here's the question. In what year was Docker first released? Now I'll explain what to do with that answer if you know it later on in the video, but for now let's move on and see how, using Docker, that we can set up a self-hosted password manager called Bitwarden. And we're going to be looking at how to do this both on an Unraid server at home as well as on a VPS server in the cloud. So you might be asking, why go to the trouble of doing this anyway? Now we all know how important it is to use good passwords. And no, we're not really clever if we use the word password just by swapping out the S's for $signs. But the more passwords that we have, the harder it becomes to remember them all. And this is one thing that a password manager can help us with. And yes, our browsers can remember passwords for us too. And you might think that's really good of them to do that, and why would you need more? Well, browsers having password managers, whilst it might be really convenient and easy to use, the main reason why they're actually there is to keep you locked using that browser always. Companies like Google, they'd just rather you didn't use any other browsers. Just the same as many tech giants, they make a lot of money mining your data, so anything they can do to keep you tied to their platform, they're going to do it. But also if you're saving passwords in your browser, anyone can actually jump onto your PC, then they can easily log into and access all of your sites from the browser. And if that particular person happens to also know your computer's login password, then they can actually see all of your passwords for any site that you've saved. They could just quickly take a picture of the screen with their cell phone, then go home and at leisure have access to all of your favourite sites. So this is where a password manager comes in. It keeps the passwords separate to the browser, and it also keeps them secure. But of course it will also autofill them, and oh yes, it will also keep credit card details, addresses etc. secure, and it will autofill them in too. So I'm sure you've heard of LastPass, Dashlane and other paid password managers, but can we really trust them not to have a data breach? Our passwords are probably some of the most important information that we have, and whilst we may be able to trust these companies now, who knows in 1 year, 2 years or 5 years, will it be the same then? So that's why self-hosting a password manager is definitely the way forward. That way we've got control over all of our most important data. So let's get a Bitwarden server set up. First let's do it on the Unraid server, and then afterwards we'll do the same on a VPS. Okay, so let's set up Bitwarden. So as always, let's go to the Apps tab and do a search for Bitwarden. And we're going to install a Bitwarden RS, which is basically a Bitwarden server that's been rewritten in Rust. And I'm going to choose the default branch to install. Okay, so let's look at the template and fill that out. Now the first thing here is the Web UI port. By default it's set to 880, but what I suggest you do is scroll down to the bottom here and click on this button here that says Show Docker Allocations. This will show all of the ports that are currently being used on your server by Docker. And as you can see, my Shinobi Pro is using the same port number, and also if I was to start up my Unify controller, well, it's being used there as well. So I'm actually going to change this port number because I've got other conflicting things using the same port. So I'm going to change this, I think, to 8086. Now the next part here is the path for storage, and what we want to do is we want to map this into our app data and into app data in a folder obviously called Bitwarden. Now you don't have to map it here, but I think it's a really good idea for all containers to map their persistent data into the app data share. Okay, so next we've got signups allowed. This by default is set to false. Basically sign-ups is whether someone can sign up from the web page. We probably want to leave this set as false and invitation set to true. So basically then people can be invited to join your Bitwarden server. And next, server admin email. Just put in an email address that you want to use for the server admin. And all of the rest here we're going to leave as default. And now we come down to where it says admin token. And we need this to be able to access the admin page for Bitwarden. Now we can just put anything here, any random thing, we could put something like that. But what I recommend to do is to open the terminal window here and run this command, open SSL space rand space -base64 space 48. That will generate a really complex random key. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste that in as my admin token here. Okay, so that's everything we need to fill in. So let's go down to the bottom, click apply and pull down the container. Okay, so the Bitwarden container is all up and running now. And if we go to the web UI, we've got the option here to log in or to create an account. Now we can't create an account because that function's disabled, and we can't log in because we don't have an account. So at the top here, I'm just going to type in /admin, and that will bring us to the admin panel here. And this is where we put in our admin key, which we created earlier. So just pop that in and click enter, and that brings us to the admin panel. Now here there are various settings. You can see there's general settings here, where you can set things such as your domain URL and a have you been pwned API key. Some other important configuration settings here is the SMTP email settings, so Bitwarden can send out emails. This is important to set this up, but I'm not going to do any of this yet until I've put this behind a reverse proxy and put Bitwarden on the domain. So let's go back to the Unraid web UI. Now you're going to have to be running a reverse proxy to do this. I'm using Let's Encrypt here, and if you want to see how to set up Let's Encrypt, then to do that please see my videos about setting up Let's Encrypt here. Okay, so now I'm going to assume that you have Let's Encrypt all set up and working. Now by default, Let's Encrypt doesn't have a configuration file to reverse proxy Bitwarden, so I've put one in the description of this video. Okay, so download the file in the description to your desktop and unzip that file. And here we have the Bitwarden reverse proxy configuration file. So let's have a look at it quickly. And this configuration file is written to work with a custom Docker network on your server, as I use in my Let's Encrypt video. And we're going to need a subdomain pointing to the WAN address where our server is. If we're using a DNS tracker, then we'll use a CNAME, but if you've got a static IP, then it will be an A record. You can see me setting up a CNAME in my Let's Encrypt video, and you'll see me setting up an A record later on when I'm setting up Bitwarden on a VPS. The subdomain here assumes that the subdomain is set to bitwarden dot and then whatever your domain name may be. But if you didn't want to use that particular subdomain, just change it to whatever you want here. Okay, so we need to copy this file here, and then we need to go to our app data share, and then go to the Let's Encrypt folder here, then Nginx, and here the proxy configs folder, and we want to copy that file into here. Okay, so with that done, let's close this, go back to the Unraid web UI. So now we want to go to the Bitwarden template, and we're going to change the network type here from bridge to the custom proxynet one that we created when we set up the Let's Encrypt reverse proxy. Okay, so scroll to the bottom and click apply, and done. Now next we're going to have to restart the Let's Encrypt container. That's for the configuration file to be reloaded that we just put in. So with that done, we should be able to access Bitwarden through our domain name. Okay, so here we are logged into Bitwarden. Now again, we can't create an account or log in because we haven't set one up yet. So at the top here, I'm going to append this and put /admin to get back to the admin page. And now put in my admin token. Now you can see why it's important that we have to choose a complicated authentication key, because basically this is always public facing. Okay, so now let's fill in the configuration. Under general settings, I'm going to put in the domain URL, and for me that's going to be https://bitwarden.bitwarden.co.uk. And here we can put in a have you been pwned API key. Now unfortunately it costs $3.50 a month for the API key, and if you've only got 1 or 2 users it's really kind of not worth it, I don't think. but I bought one just to try it out, so I'm going to pop mine in here. Okay, so let's scroll down. Okay, so now let's look at SMTP email settings and fill out that section. So we need to fill in our mail server details here, and obviously that can be very different for everyone. For me, I found if I didn't use explicit TLS, then it didn't work for me, so I'm checking this. And my port isn't 587, I'm using 465, and my from address, that should be the address that you're sending from, obviously. And for me, my username is the same as what my sending from address is. Then obviously we need to put the email password in too. And then go down to the bottom and click on to save. Okay, so with that done, now we can invite a user. So we need to pop in the email address of the user we want to set up. So we need to put in the email address and click on to invite. And there we can see that our user's been invited. So now if we go across to our email, we should see an invite email. Okay, so now I've received the invitation, so I'm going to click on join organisation now. And so now I'm going to click on to create account. And first here we have to put in a name. And next we have to put in a master password. Now this is used to unlock Bitwarden, to unlock your vault of passwords, so make sure it's really secure. And then here just confirm the password again. We can put a password hint if we want to, I'm not going to bother, so once you've filled that in then just click on to submit. And it says the new account's been created, so now I can log in. Okay, and here it says the invitation's been accepted. You should just receive an email saying that it's automatically been accepted. Okay, so next I'm going to verify the email to complete the account setup. Again, we'll just receive an email through to verify the account, and when that arrives we just click verify email now, and that's everything done. And so now everything's ready for us to start using Bitwarden. But before we go and see how to use it, let's go across and set this up on a VPS. So you might think, because I've just shown you how to set it up on your home server, why would you want to set it up on a VPS? Well, some people have real big problems setting up a reverse proxy. Maybe their ISP doesn't allow the forwarding of port 80 or port 443. So setting it up on a VPS, we can avoid all of these type of problems. And another reason is, well, we need Bitwarden to be running 24/7 because we're always going to need to access our passwords. Now imagine you go out of town for work and you've got to log into a site whilst away. Your home server's been running fine for months, but suddenly the power company decides that it's going to do some work in your area, and out goes the power for a few hours. And when the power finally does come back on, unfortunately your home server just doesn't. Okay, right, so we can call the little old lady who lives next door. Maybe she can help us. Hello? Who's this? Oh, hello Mrs. Rayner, it's Ed here from next door. I was wondering if you might be able to help me. Oh yes, of course dear, what would you want? Well, can you go to my house, and if you look under the third flower pot on the right, you'll see a key. If you can go in and then press the power button to start up my server, that would be great. Oh, alright dear. So let me get this straight. You want me to go into your house and wake up your servant? No Mrs. Rayner. Never mind. Anyway, I've got to go. I'll see you when I get back. Bye. So yeah, you get the picture. Things can go wrong. Well, having it running on a VPS, it's going to be running 24/7. Could the Bitwarden installation go wrong? Well, yeah, of course, anything can. But you can log into the VPS from anywhere in the world, and you've also got the security of having great support that isn't that little old lady who lives next door if you're using a great company like our sponsors, FastHosts. FastHosts is a UK-based hosting company which offer a great range of web hosting products along with other great services. Are you starting a business and need a website? Well, it couldn't be easier to buy your domain name from FastHosts. Not only do they give you access to a huge range of domain names, but their prices are great too. FastHosts really go the extra mile to support UK businesses and entrepreneurs at all levels, providing great hosting services that can grow as and when your business needs it. So if you need a virtual private server, then FastHosts have got you covered. Benefit from fast and affordable VPS hosting with dedicated resources, including 100% SSD storage, plus great UK data centres and a choice of Linux or Windows OSs. So before I go and show you what I did with my VPS I bought from FastHosts, then I just want to tell you that FastHosts are offering any of my UK viewers the opportunity to win 2 tickets to South by Southwest, and this includes flights and accommodation as well. So all you have to do is answer my techie test question. And so the question is, in which year was Docker first released? To answer the question and enter the competition, just follow the link in the description below. FastHost data centers are based in the UK right alongside their offices. So if you go for a lightweight web hosting package or a fully fledged dedicated box, you can talk to their expert support teams 24/7. Okay, so let's get Bitwarden set up on this VPS. Now Bitwarden needs at least 2 gigs of RAM to run properly, so that's why I chose the VPS 60 with 1 CPU and 2 gigs of RAM. So let's head across to the control panel for this VPS so we can find the root password and then log into the server via SSH. So I'm going to click on reveal here so I can see the password, and now just copy it onto the clipboard. Now to use SSH I'm also going to have to open port 22, and I'm going to clear the login details here just for a bit of extra security. So now I'm going to head across to the firewall policy and open a few ports. I'm going to open up port 22 for SSH, and also I'm going to open up port 80 and port 443, which are going to be used when we create our Let's Encrypt certificate. Okay, so now let's SSH into the server. Now if you're using Windows to log in, you're going to have to use a program like PuTTY. I'm using OS X here, so I can just log in straight from the terminal. So I'm going to type SSH, then the username is root at, and then the IP address of the server. And yes, I want to continue connecting. Now I'm going to pop in a password that I just copied earlier and press enter. And now I'm straight into the server. Okay, so let's clear the screen. Oh, I should mention that when I set up this server, I chose the operating system to be Ubuntu 18.04. Okay, so now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change the root password because I will never remember the one that I copied and pasted. So I'm going to type sudo passwd space root, and I'm going to type in my own password and confirm. Okay, so we've changed the root password. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to install is we're going to have to install Docker. Now don't worry, it's really easy. We just have to type a few commands into the terminal, and if you can copy and paste, then it's going to be no problem at all for you, because I'm going to leave all of these commands in the link in the description. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to update all of the packages on this VPS. So for that we're going to type sudo space apt space update. Now this will take just a few moments to complete. Okay, so that's done. So again, let's clear the screen. So the next thing we want to do is to add a new repository. So we need to add the dependencies to be able to do this. So now for that, we're going to use this command here. And yes, we want to continue. So now we need to import the GPG key. And we're going to do that with this command here. Okay, so again, let's clear the screen. Okay, so now let's add the repository ready to install Docker. And we'll do that with this command here. And again, we're going to update the packages again with a sudo apt update. And with that done, now we can install the latest stable Docker release by running sudo apt install docker-ce. Okay, so that's going to take 460 megs of space, so let's hit yes to continue. Okay, so that's it, Docker's installed. Pretty easy, hey? So let's clear the screen. And we can test it's working by running docker space container space run space hello hyphen world. This will just download and run a really simple container, saying it can't find it locally, so it's pulling it down, and hello from Docker. Docker's working absolutely fine. Okay. All good so far. Okay, so next we need to install Docker Compose to be able to install Bitwarden. Now, if we go across to GitHub here, we can see that the latest version of Docker Compose at the moment when this video is being made is 1.25.1. And so to install it, let's copy this line here and paste that into our terminal. And what that's going to do is download the latest Docker Compose from GitHub and put it into the USR local bin directory. Okay, so that's done. So now we have to give this file the correct permissions. So paste in this command here. Again, this is in the description. And that's it, Docker Compose is installed. And to just check it's working, let's paste in this command here to check the version of Docker Compose, and as expected it's 1.25.1. Great! So that's Docker and Docker Compose installed ready, and now we can get to the good bit and install Bitwarden. Now to be able to install Bitwarden and use it, we're going to need to have our own domain name, so I'm going to go across and buy one now. To make it easy, I'm going to buy mine from FastHosts, but if you already have a domain name, then you can use that, that's fine. Okay, cool, bitwarden.co.uk is available, I think I'll take that one. Okay, so I'm going to check out and pay for that. I think 1 year is going to be fine because I'm only going to use this domain for this video. I only want the domain name, no other services. So with that I'm going to pay with PayPal and then go back to the dashboard. Okay, so now with the domain name set up, I need to make a DNS record. I'm going to click onto the DNS button here because I want to add an A record. Now obviously if you're not using FastHost as your registrar, there'll be probably a pretty similar interface that will allow you to do this. I'm going to create a subdomain off this domain name. I think pass.bitwarden.co.uk will be a good subdomain. And I'm going to put in the IP address here of what the VPS server is, so I'm going to copy that. And then paste it in here because that's where I want the A record to point to. Now I've got a message here saying the DNS changes are pending. They normally happen like pretty fast, and to check it, if we just do a search for DNS propagation, then we can use one of these checker tools and type in our subdomain here and then just click onto search. And there we can see the correct IP address is coming up around the world, so we're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so let's go back to our SSH window. Now the Bitwarden guys have made it pretty easy to install Bitwarden, and we can just do it by downloading a script. So basically paste in these lines here, and so that's downloaded our script and set the correct permissions. And so we just run the script with ./bitwarden.sh space install. And the first thing we need to do is put in our domain name. We need to put in the subdomain that we created earlier. So for me that's pass.bitwarden.co.uk. And we've got the choice of if we want to use Let's Encrypt to generate an SSL certificate. So I'm going to put yes. And then we need to put in an email address for where we get the reminders when the certificate expires. Okay, so now it's created a certificate. It's going to pull down the containers necessary to set up Bitwarden. Now you'll see it says we need to enter an installation ID. And to do that we go to this website here and pop in our email address. And click on to submit. And then you can see we're given an installation ID. So we need to copy that and paste that in here first and hit enter. Now we need the key part, the second part here. So let's paste that in. Now the DH parameters are going to be generated. This takes quite a long time, so I'm going to speed up the video just to get through to the end of this. Okay, good, so that's the installation complete now. Now we could just run the Bitwarden start command now to start and install all of the containers. But as you can see here, we can actually edit the config.yaml file if we need to. I don't actually need to edit it, but let's have a look at it anyway. So I'm going to type sudo nano and then paste in that location that I just copied. So there's various things that can be changed here, such as the various port numbers and the URL for accessing the installation. None of these things I actually need to change myself. So I'm going to leave everything as is and just exit out of Nano. Now if we were to have made any changes in the config.yaml file, then we need to run this command here, the bitwarden.sh rebuild command, which will just rebuild all of that with the new configuration. But we didn't change anything, so there's no need to do that right now. Okay, before moving on, let's just clear the screen. And what we have to do now is we have to edit some environmental variables. So again, I'm going to type sudo nano and then paste in this location here, the bwdata/env/global.override.env. And I'm going to edit that in Nano. So we need Bitwarden to better send out email. So the first part we need to edit is this part here. This first line here, the reply to email, we need to change that. That needs to match the email account that you're setting up to be sending email from. The next line here is the email host. and beneath that is the port number for the SMTP. Under that, whether we're using SSL, that's either set to true or false, and then the 2 lines under that is the email username and the email password. So this is an example of how to change my settings. The email address I'd use send@bitwarden.co.uk. The email host was mail.bitwarden.co.uk. I changed the port to 465 as that's what my mail server used. SSL was true, and then I put in the username and password for the email account. And you'll see 3 lines under here. The first one saying disable user registration. By default that's set to false, obviously, because when we first start Bitwarden we're going to want to register a user or 2. When you've set up all the users you want to use with Bitwarden, come back here and change this variable to true, and then no more users will be able to register, because remember the Bitwarden web UI is going to be public facing on the internet. And the line underneath, we can optionally put in an HIBP API key, which we can get at the website haveibeenpwned.com, so we can integrate Have I Been Pwned searches directly into Bitwarden. Now the cost of the API key unfortunately is $3.50 per month. Personally, just if you're a home user with just a few users, I really don't see the point in actually buying the API key. I think this feature is designed for far larger users than probably you or I are. But I did sign up for a month just to try it out, and we'll be having a look at that later. And finally, the admin settings at the bottom. In this line we can put in email addresses, which will be allowed to access the admin panel in Bitwarden. So to save the file, press Ctrl and O, then enter to confirm the name, and then Ctrl and X to exit Nano. So with that done, we now need to issue the rebuild command, and that will rebuild with those changes. And now with that finished, we can run the Bitwarden start command. Now this part's really sped up, but it doesn't take very long. Okay, so now Bitwarden's up and running. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run docker space ps, and I can see that all of the containers necessary to run Bitwarden, they're all up and running. These ones are saying that they're starting still. Okay, so I'm going to run the same command again and check if they're all up and started now. Okay, so everything's up, it all says healthy. So now I'm going to minimize this window here, and I'm going to log into my Bitwarden instance, which for me is pass.bitwarden.co.uk, and obviously at the moment I haven't got an account, so I need to click on create account, and we need to put in an email address. And then click submit. Okay, and it says the account's now being created and we can log in. Okay, and here we are on the dashboard, and the first thing we need to do is click this to verify our email, and we can see here that it says that an email should be in our inbox. So I'm going to go across to my Gmail and have a look if it's there, and yep, the verification email's there, so I'm going to click on the link to verify, and we get a message from Bitwarden telling us that it's been done. So now with that done, we can log back into the account. Okay, so now we're ready to use Bitwarden, everything's done. So let's log out of this user. And if we wanted to set up any other accounts, we could just click on create account and do the same as what we've just done. But remember, once you finish setting up all of your accounts, remember to go back into that configuration file and set sign up to be false. So now let's have a look at the admin page on Bitwarden. It's quite different to how the Bitwarden RS admin page is on Unraid. So the login method is different. We don't use an authorization key, but we have to put in an email address which is listed in the configuration file earlier, and if that email address is valid, it will send through a login link allowing us to log into the admin panel. So here's the link, so let's click on to log in. On the admin page we can see various information about the Bitwarden server. We can look at the users. On this page we can do things like click on the username and then be able to go and delete the user. Clicking on organisations, well, obviously gives you information about the organisations. And finally docs takes us to the Bitwarden site where we can get various documentation about using Bitwarden. So in the admin setting, unlike the Bitwarden RS that we installed on Unraid, there's not many settings that you can actually come here and change. Okay, so now we've set up a Bitwarden server on Unraid and we've set up a Bitwarden server on a VPS. Okay, so now let's move on and look at how we actually use the Bitwarden server. How do we connect to it from one of the clients? Okay, so on the Bitwarden website, if we go on to download, we can see the various different clients that we can use. There's one for Windows, Mac and Linux. And also there's some web browser plugins here, one for Google Chrome, which I'm going to install now. Just click add to Chrome. And now at the top here you'll see a little icon. So click onto that, and here we have the option to log in. Now don't click log in here, we need to go up to the top left to where the little cog is where it says settings, and click onto that. And here we need to put in the URL of our Bitwarden server. And click onto save. Okay, so now that the URL's been added, we can click onto login. We put in our username and password here, and click onto login. Okay, so now we're logged into the vault, and we can see there's no items here at all. And we can click on add item here, and we can add logins, credit cards, and identities, which is addresses and that kind of thing. And if I go to somewhere like Amazon and click onto sign in, and Bitwarden will ask us whether we want to save the password. So you can just click on yes, save now. And so now when you click on the Bitwarden icon at the top, we can see here that there's one saved login. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do in this video is import all of our existing passwords that have been saved in Google Chrome and put them into Bitwarden. Okay, so with Chrome open, in the top right hand corner click on those little three dots, and then go down to settings and type in passwords and click on the password icon here. Just above the password list you'll see another three dots, click onto that as well, and then click onto export passwords. You'll need to authenticate this with your computer password to do so, then just click on save to save the passwords into a location of your choice. Okay, so with that done, now you're going to have to log back into the web UI of Bitwarden, and once here click onto tools and then import data, and then obviously select the format to be Chrome. Then click onto choose file and select the file that we just downloaded, and then click onto open. And then press on import data, and job done, all your passwords are now in Bitwarden. So now we can go to any website where we normally log in, right click and then go to the Bitwarden icon and then go to autofill. And there we are, we're signed in using Bitwarden. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the video. And that's pretty much everything I know about Bitwarden. If you know anything about Bitwarden that you think would be helpful for others, then please leave it in the comments below. Well guys, it's getting late here, so it's time for me to go to bed. But before I do, I just want to thank all of my patrons and supporters out there. Thank you so much for supporting me and giving me the opportunity to be able to make these videos. And if you'd like to join this great bunch of people and support the channel, then please see the links in the description below. And as always, if you like this video, then please hit that like button. Share the video with anyone else who you think might like it too. And if you're not already a subscriber and you want to see more videos like this, then please subscribe to the channel. But for now it's time for me to go. So whatever you're up to for the rest of the day, I hope it's good, and I'll catch you in the next video.